How should you set your training up if you're training towards the military? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you. First thing to say is there are many ways in which you can get from point A to point B, and it's going to be very, very individual. However, the structure I'm going to show you is, broadly speaking, going to be effective for the majority of people. I'm just going to go through the week to week. I'm not going to look at the broader picture in terms of periodization or anything like that. I can do that in a separate video. If you would like me to, drop a comment and let me know. But today, I'm going to go through a typical week in terms of how I would set things up. Across the top here, we're going to have our days of the week. So I'm going to split this up further into two sections. The top part, I'm going to put the type of session we're going to do. And in the bottom, I'm going to give a little bit more detail. So on Monday, I would typically start things off usually with a lower body strength session. Now that's going to look different for each and every person and each and every individual's focus we're going to need to consider. However, a lower body strength session on the Monday makes sense because it's going to be high demand in terms of it's going to be fatiguing. It's going to probably require a lot of central nervous system activation, and it's going to be quite a difficult session. So we want to come into that having been well rested over the weekend, and we really want it to be the first thing we do so that we can give maximal intensity to that session. Now on Tuesday, we're going to follow the theme you may imagine, and we're going to do an upper body strength session. This allows us to, by the time we've got to Wednesday, we've had a good exposure to strength and accessory work, both in the lower body and the upper body. And we've probably hit the majority of the movement patterns, the majority of the muscle groups within the body by that point. So we've got a good amount of work out of the way before the week starts to get away from us. Now, the reason we don't do body part splits, as in the reason I'm not doing a shoulder day or a chest day or a back day, is because it's going to take up too much time within the week if we split things off that way. So if we do an upper body day where we might do a movement for chest, a movement for back, a movement for shoulders, a movement for arms in the same workout, well, we've hit it all now, and we can then probably hit it again later on in the week. But it allows us more space within the week to focus on other more important things for the military. So lower body, upper body strength sessions are the first two sessions of the week. The third session of the week is typically going to be body weight and running focused. So your body weight and running focused, and the reason we look at that as a singular session, rather than trying to bolt it onto other things or trying to do it in a circuit fashion, is if you do that and it's just an afterthought, it's forgotten about, you maybe spend 20 minutes at the end of your session or 20 minutes at the start of your session focusing on bodyweight stuff, it's probably not enough, and it probably doesn't, again, allow you to give the intensity and the attention it needs to that actual element of this kind of fitness. We need to be good at bodyweight stuff, we need to be good at push-ups, pull-ups and sit-ups, we need to practice those things under fatigue, we also need to practice those things under test conditions, and we need a dedicated session to do that. So the third session of the week is going to be bodyweight focused and running in some way, shape or form. Now, because that's a dedicated day, we can actually now progress it over time rather than having it, again, attached to different sessions, really random throughout the week, and we don't really know how to progress it over time. So because that's a dedicated session, we can do that now. Thursday is going to be a little bit of an interchangeable day, but typically for most people, we're going to look at a rest day on Thursday. Caveat to that might be someone's got a higher training age, someone can train a bit more, so we might put an extra session in there. But usually we're going to look at a rest day on Thursday, specifically at the start of someone's training journey when they're training like this, because ideally that allows us to increase intensity on all of these three. So we know we've got a rest day coming on Thursday. So now lower body day, upper body day and the bodyweight session, we can really focus on pushing the intensity in those sessions because we know we've got a carrot on Thursday and we're going to be able to reset. What this also allows us to do is to have a brief reset midway through the week so that then Friday and Saturday and Sunday we can start to push again, rather than training all the time throughout the week and our sessions quality just getting lower and lower and lower. So we're resting Thursday for most people. Friday, I would be going in with a full body strength session, probably with some body weight focus as well. So that allows us to hit the body weight stuff twice, okay, and double up on the frequency from the lower body and the upper body session. So ideally, to make any sort of gains strength-wise or muscle gains, if that's what we're looking at, we need to be hitting things twice a week as a very minimum. So muscle groups, movements, need to be hitting those twice a week to really make an impact. If we're doing things once a week, typically, it's not going to be enough. So that full body and body weight day is there to sweep up the volume that we need for the total week and saves us training too much across the week. So it gives us that space to have rest days in there as well, which is super important. If we're not resting, typically we're not going to be actually making the progress we need to be. And also, it is going to affect the session intensity and quality as we move through the week if we just don't have rest days and ignore the fact that the body needs to recover. So full body and body weight focus on Friday. Saturday or Sunday, really interchangeable again, is going to be a running session. And that's going to be the dedicated run for the week. So again, depending on who it is, depending on what's going on for that individual, we're going to look at either a tempo session, maybe a hill sprint session, maybe a long run, maybe it's an easy session, whatever it is. But typically, we're going to run. And again, for the majority of people, that's probably going to look like zone 2. So that we're going to have that longer zone 2 experience for the Saturday session. Why? Well, most people have work off on Saturdays, and that zone 2 session is probably going to be longer, or certainly going to get longer as the weeks go on. So we need, in order to be sustainable, we need the time within the day to actually focus on that zone 2 session. Sunday, again, for most people, is going to be a rest day. So that's broadly what we're looking at. Lower body, upper body, body weight and run. Rest day, full body and body weight. We've got a zone 2 session on Saturday and a rest day Sunday. Okay, so that's initially what we're going to look at. When we now move down into what these sessions actually comprise of, well, that's where it gets more individual. But again, I'm going to give you a broad brush example and use this as a guide. Don't just copy and paste this. I mean, you're welcome to, but if you want help implementing all of this stuff, then you can hit the link in the description below, book in for a call with myself, and we'll take you through how we would implement this with our clients so that you just can take the guesswork out of moving towards your goal. So, lower body session, we're going to have a compound movement. So, whatever that is going to be looking like, that's going to be our KPI for the day, or our key performance indicator for the day. So, for most people, again, it's going to be a back squat, a box squat, a trap bar deadlift, maybe an RDL, maybe it's a single leg movement, whatever it may be. Again, for that individual, we're going to look at the individual, we're going to look at what they might need. We're also going to look at their skill level, their training age, all those kinds of things come into what we select for that KPI. So compound movement to begin with. As we move down, we're going to look at probably some single leg stuff, so some single leg work. And that, again, typically is going to take the shape of a split squat, a lunge, a single leg press, whatever it may be, just so we're getting that balance side to side. And again, the selection of that movement really comes down to who the person is in front of us. This is why individualization is so important. Someone's just come to us and never trained before, well, we're not going to make them Bulgarian split squat, okay? So compound movement, really important details there. Compound movement, single leg work. And then as we move down again, we can probably look at some core work on that day as well. So compound movement, accessories, core at the end. When we look at our upper body session, it really follows the same structure. So again, we want a compound. So we want something like a KPI, bench press, shoulder press, whatever it is. And when I say compound movement, there's a lot of compound movements, of course, there's many of them. It needs to be a good one that we select, that we can actually output force into, that we're stable in, that we have good skill acquisition. So we're not learning the skill and trying to push the intensity at the same time. So we need to be able to go quite heavy with this compound, because if we can't, there's no real point. So it's selecting a movement that we can go heavy with. As we move down, more specifically, we're going to look at some accessory work. This is typically going to look like bodybuilding. This is going to be protecting range of motion, making sure that we're actually taking the muscles through a full range, making sure we're exposed to deep stretch, making sure that we can have that ability, if we need to build muscle. This actually will be akin to a bit of bodybuilding stuff. As we move down this, we'll probably look at some prehab. And again, that takes different forms depending on the person and depending on what we're focusing on for that exact time. But it could be some lower body prehabs, could be some shoulder prehab work, whatever it may be. And again, that's individual. But broadly, heavy compound, accessory work, so bodybuilding style stuff, and looking at prehab. So again, for this upper body session, probably looking at a push movement, a pull movement together when we're in this middle piece. And then we're either going to be having a push movement or a pull movement for the compound as well. Okay, so it could be a weighted pull-up, for example. When we're into our body weight session, this again really depends on the individual and on the course we're actually focusing on. because a lot of the courses are going to require a body weight focus. So if that's the case, then we need to draw from that test and put it into what we're going to program. So for this example, where we don't really know whether this is going to be a general advisory, we're just going to put course specific. So course specific, we need to be respecting where that individual is going. So 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some body weight element to the course we're going on. So we need to be good at that. So for a Marines example, we're going to look at the RMFA. So that's again an example of what this might look like, or the structure this might follow. So we look at some push-ups, pull-ups and sit-ups, look at doing those to the beep. We look at implementing a progression scheme in that element somewhere, where maybe it's going to be 3 to 4 rounds of 50% of your max reps, for example. You might go through all of the reps, rest 2 minutes, go again. Then you might drop the intensity of that movement or the complexity of that movement and look at doing 100% of the max, etc. There are loads of ways you can do it, but broadly, we're going to make sure that's course specific. As we go down into the running, we're really looking here at speed intervals. And again, these are to work towards one of our key tests that we would have done in the first phase of the training, which again, I'll get into in another video. But if we've tested the 1.5 mile, that's what we're going to look at. If we've tested the 5K, that's what we're going to look at. So potentially we could look at a Norwegian 4x4 here. We could look at 10 by 400 meters if we want to go super fast and short. We could look at 800 meter efforts. Again, whatever it means to you. But really, broad brush, there needs to be a focus on what's the progression scheme and what's the distance we're actually trying to progress towards. Both those things are important. Again, rest day on Thursday, so don't really worry about that. Full body on the Friday. So what we're going to do here, ideally, is we're going to pick something that we didn't hit on our lower body day or our upper body day. So for example, if we did a load of squatting on our lower body day, we're probably going to focus on hinging in our full body day. If again, the same, if we focused a lot on push movements in our upper body day, we're going to probably focus on pull movements or a different kind of push movement in the full body, just so it's rounded off. So we'll also have some compounds. We'll have some supersets. So we're going to superset a upper body movement typically with a lower body movement, just to get that session to be more efficient, so we're not in the gym for ages. As we move down again, the bodyweight stuff is going to be specific to that individual. Whatever that individual struggles with, maybe it's push-ups, maybe it's pull-ups, maybe it's sit-ups, whatever that is, they're going to do extra work on that day. Whatever the person needs more attention, we're going to look at hitting that for the full body day. Now, our zone 2 session for Saturday, very, very simple. We're typically going to be running for most people unless there's an injury there. And we want to be making sure that that is sustainably long. Okay, so 45 minutes, I'll probably say plus. And we can scale that over time. Typically, we're going to look to progress that up to 90 minutes-ish. And that's if we're focusing on zone 2. If we're not, we're focusing on something else, maybe it's a tempo run or some sort of hill sprints into a run, then again, that's got to start very, very sustainable and manageable at the start of the block. So 45 minutes plus for zone 2, and looking to stay really aerobic. So that's probably going to be, for most people watching this, I would imagine, somewhere below 150 BPM. And that's obviously a really broad prescription. We can get more specific with that with the individual, but generally. So generally speaking, that's what we're looking at for a week of military training. Again, it's going to be different as we move through the block. It's also going to be different person to person, but I've given you some good guidelines there. And if you do, again, want help implementing this for yourself as an individual, that's absolutely fine. We can do that. Just hit the link in the description and we will take you through everything. But as you can see, we've hit pretty much everything we need to hit. Arguably, we have more running in there, but again, it depends on the person. It depends on where the weaknesses are, okay? So that's it for today. Hopefully you found that useful and that was something you can take away and use for yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments and I will get back to every single one of them. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.